This conference will now be recorded.
That computer voice sounded a little tired today or something. Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I've got 9 o'clock here. So first off, the land acknowledgement. As we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The township of Southgate is part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabeg, Six Nations of the Grand River, the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, Haudenosaunee, and Saugeen Métis. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are as it reflects our histories. May we live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people. Did we have anyone for open forum, Lindsay?
No, Mayor Woodbury, no one signed up today.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion for confirmation of the agenda. It's moved by Jim, seconded by Brian. Was that, did we need that to be amended, Lindsay?
Yes, Mayor Woodbury, it's as amended, but we'd also, if council would be agreeable, Ray Kurtz and Dustin Little from Triton are in attendance. We were just wondering if we could move up two of our Public Works Manager's staff reports just in the interest of their time, and we could deal with them following the adoption of the minutes. It would be number 9.6.1 and 9.6.4.
Okay. Is that okay with the mover and seconder? Okay, let's see, Brian. Jim's good. All right. Any further discussion on the confirmation of the agenda? Okay, seeing none. Is anyone opposed? That is carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest can declare now or at any time. We have no delegations or presentations, and I have a motion. This is how today's going to go. I have a motion moved by Martin, seconded by Barb, that we adopt the minutes of the March 16th council meeting and the March 30th council and special council and closed meeting sessions. Any discussion on that? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? Okay, and that is carried. Next, we have 9.6.1, and that is the moved by Jason, seconded by Michael, and that's the wastewater treatment facility expansion recommendation. Jim?
People, I have to apologize. It looks like the final report with a few of the updates didn't make it to the agenda here with the attached letters. So we will circulate that around to council and the clerk for update. But we have, as was mentioned from Triton Engineering, Ray Kurtz and Dustin Little, who have been working along with township staff on the wastewater expansion proposals. And we have come down to a point where we've looked at a submission from Triple Point and their suggestions for implementation for meeting our needs for the future here in 2 phases. And there are some costs that are still outstanding to try and nail down, but that was with every proposal that was submitted due to whether there would be other upgrades needed to building infrastructure, addition to a building, those type of things. And to get to that point where we need to be to finalize that, we really need to drill down with the technologies that were preferred and that we're proposing to get to that numbers and where we actually need to be. So with more in-depth detail being looked after. So this is to proceed and bring back entering an intent of agreement with Triple Point to get those final details, and Triton to be able to then work through the rest of the process to submit this for MECP approvals.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Thanks for all the work that's gone into this. I know it's been quite a bit. Questions or comments from council? And I can only see some of you on the screen here. So, Brian?
Thank you, John. Good morning, Jim. My question is around the increase or the potential increase capacity of the wastewater treatment system and the loading of the Foley drain. I presume that's part of this project. It's not simply that we can increase the capacity of our system. It's to minimize any increased impact on the Foley drain and ultimately the Grand River. Is that part of this project as well, Jim?
Yes, absolutely. We've done the assimilative capacity report, and for phase one, we are good for discharging to the Foley drain at this point, it looks like. If council wishes to waive procedural bylaw, we could have one of Triton comment as well on that process if you wish.
I'd, for one, would like to hear from them. Do we need to formally? Okay, I'll move that we waive procedural bylaw to allow.
Okay, so would you move that?
Yes, I will.
And I would second it, or Barb.
Yep, okay. And Bart, you'll second it? Yep, okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Okay, so yeah.
Ray or Dustin, do you want to come on to the meeting here and address council with their questions?
Hi, everybody. Can everybody hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Ray.
Yep, can hear.
Yeah, you go ahead, Ray.
Oh,
We don't hear Ray, we hear Dustin.
sorry. I thought it was Ray speaking.
Any chance? Well, anyway. Yeah, so I can take it from here anyway. We did an assimilative capacity study of the Foley drain, and within that, the findings found that we could increase the effluent discharge, treated, obviously, as needed for in a two-phased approach. Phase one will be allowed, and then we'll have to do additional studies to move into phase two, and the flow rates stipulated within that. I'd have to check back what those exact rates were. But basically, you know, the phase one will get us to probably 10, 15-year horizon, depending on growth, obviously, and flow rates. The ministry has accepted our assimilative capacity study and said that this is, you know, suitable to move on to the next stage. So the ministry will then look at what treatment process we are proposing, and what the effluent will be. So they have dictated what the criteria needs to be to ensure that there's no negative impact to the Foley drain.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions from council? Barbara?
Jason had his hand up first, Mayor Woodbury, and I'm happy to wait.
Okay, sorry, I can't see you, Jason. Yep, go ahead,
Oh, no
Jason.
problem. It's not, that's fine. Just wondering, maybe I missed it here, how much of this is going to be covered by DCs? I don't know if Jim has, maybe I missed it in there. I don't think I did, but just kind of wondering, most of this is due to the new development, is it not?
Well, there will be DCs that will
Yeah,
be
go ahead.
available for this. Liam, do you have that number handy there?
The current DC bylaw says 90% is due to growth. So 90% of the cost would be covered by DC.
Okay. You there, Barbara?
Yes, sorry, I was waiting. I wasn't
Oh,
sure
there.
if it was my turn. Thank you, Mayor Woodbury, and thank you, Jim, for the report. I had a similar question to Councillor Rice's about, what the DCs would cover of this project. If the project proves that a full mechanical plant is no longer required, then what happens to the DC collections beyond that? Do we continue collecting for the full mechanical plant until such time as we determine it's not required?
I guess that Liam, if you could cover that.
So any excess DC collected remains in the reserve to be applied against a future DC bylaw. So with the expectation for the 2022 update, and then the project costing, say, up to 5 million, the new DC bylaw would anticipate this project being 5 million probably, rather than the 16. So if they say we had collected 10 million, well, then the excess would have just sat in there and been applied against other wastewater projects.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from council? Go ahead. Go ahead, Martin.
You're muted.
I think you've got the first mute of the day going.
He's not muted. Your audio's just not working, Councillor Shipston. Maybe try turning your camera off.
Now we can't read his lips.
We still can't hear you, Councillor Shipston. There you go.
Oh, okay. I was wondering about the 3 systems. Jim, are these systems that have been around for a while, or with the new build, are they going to be state of the art where they're going to last for quite a while? I noticed one, it's only been installed in one area and it doesn't really say anything else. So are these really the up and coming or the basics, basically?
One of them is a replacement of the aeration system that we currently have, an update to it. The other one, the nitrox system, has been implemented in cold weather conditions. So it has also received Ontario MECP approval for application to work. And the other Aquadisc filter, which is kind of a rotating structure that the media grabs onto and builds on that rotating drum. It's been installed in other places in Ontario. So these are not necessarily new technologies, but maybe more up to date than older technologies. But no, they should be more in line of what our requirements are.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, and that is carried. So we might as well do 9.6.4, I believe it was, Lindsay. Yeah, okay. And that is moved by Jason and seconded by Martin, and that's the reserve capacity.
Just going to bring the report up here, but things are a little slow this morning, it seems.
Absolutely.
I'll have to just carry on until it decides it's going to open here, but oh, there we go. So
Okay.
again, our water capacity is in good shape going forward here yet. We still have that's uncommitted, 1,000 almost 2,000 ERUs. And as far as the wastewater, again, with the new calculations coming from what we're seeing from the new development and how it's going, we've actually increased in sanitary again this year to I believe it's 187 units, 182 units over last year being 127. That's uncommitted at this point. That's not on the books.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council?
I have a question, John.
Brian?
Thank you, John. First of all, if you look at table 2, number 10 on the chart, uncommitted reserve capacity, I think the calculation should be line 8 minus line 9, not 7 minus 8. Minor thing. But my question revolves around table number 3, and that is the summary of Dundalk developments. Committed developments are those that have received draft approval. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes.
And
so we've already given allocation.
Right. And uncommitted development are those, although it says draft plan approved, is that correct?
Dustin, do you want to take that one?
Well, there's the planner. Good morning, Clint.
Oh, Clint, do you want to answer that, Clint, or do you want me to chime in?
I can answer that one. So just because they're draft plan approved does not mean we've passed an allocation bylaw and committed reserve capacity to them. There's a lot of process that goes through once it receives draft plan approval. That there's a lot of conditions, oftentimes in subdivision agreements, etc. And to prevent people from sort of hoarding our capacity because it's been so scarce, we don't allocate until closer to draft registration, actually. Right before it goes to the county, we pass a bylaw allocating the reserves. So those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 developments then are somewhere in the draft plan approval stage of getting their conditions cleared from their subdivision agreements.
So if I could, Mr. Mayor. So Clint,
Yep, go ahead.
Dundalk Commercial, what is that? It shows 24 units there that are uncommitted but have received draft approval. Do we have 24 commercial developments in the books, in process?
No, that I'd actually leave Dustin to that. That's probably more likely a general number to allocate to various projects as they come up. For, as an example, stuff in the eco park or stuff downtown that, or even future ones out on the highway that are going to require more water capacity. So, and wastewater capacity. So if Dustin wants to chime in there, but that's my interpretation of that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That was the intent of that. So this Dundalk commercial hasn't even received a draft plan approval at this stage. Rather, it's just on the books as we know it's probably going to come.
So if I can keep, sorry, Mr. Mayor, but if I could keep going, I want to understand this. So for instance, if we need more, if we have a flood of commercial development that need allocations, if we need more allocation from our reserves over the course of the year, another bylaw would be put in front of council to allocate those additional units. Is that how that works?
That's how I would interpret that, yes. So that 24 units then will be allocated based on developments that come forward for commercial development.
Right. And so I guess what I'm driving at here is, how do we determine on a commercial development, or industrial for that matter, commercial or industrial, I presume they're both similar in process at least, how do we determine what units they need or potentially need?
Excellent question. We usually ask for estimates from them. For example, with the recent Greenlit approval that we did, we asked them for an estimate of how much water and wastewater they were going to need prior to site plan approval, to make sure we had enough capacity. And sometimes there are processes in various businesses recycle a lot of stuff, so there's not a lot of actual discharge. They may use a fair amount of water, but then they recycle it. Other times it's the opposite, where they're just dumping it all in, and we want to know that. And then if we do, then we can allocate, bring an allocation bylaw forward for them.
And is that a long process, Clinton?
No, it's a matter of as soon as we can write the bylaw, we can get it.
No, I mean determining how much they need.
Well, that's up to them and their engineers. They provide it to us, and if it looks good, I show it to Triton, and if they agree, then away we go.
Bob's your uncle. Very good. All right, thank you so much.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I saw Jim had his hand up there. I don't know whether he wanted to respond to something I had.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. Jim, go ahead.
No,
and then...
it got covered off, and as the discussion kept going there, so that's fine. Barb had a question though, by the look of it.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, thanks. Barb?
Thank you. My question is about, in your staff report, Jim, the extraneous flows and the potential. I understand the need to remove sump pumps from the wastewater process and getting it into stormwater. But if your comment in your staff comments indicates that if wherever available, the sump pump discharge would be directed towards stormwater. But if not available, where does an individual's residential sump pump water go? Because it's not permitted to discharge water onto someone else's property, right? Like, you don't want backyards pooling up. How do we manage that? And how many do you anticipate being a concern?
Go ahead, Jim.
So there are a number of tests we done. We did the smoke test, which didn't reveal a whole lot that seemed to be into the system. But contrary to that smoke test, we know that we do have some of those inflows coming in from those sump pumps and eave troughs. And last year we brought forth the wastewater bylaw that gave us more of a handle on how to deal with those situations coming forward. And Bev and I will be working on some of them that we know. But if there's no outlet for them, they need to surface flow onto the ground. Yes, they have to control it that it doesn't get onto neighboring properties, but that is I can think of one instance. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge for us to get their eave troughs out, but that's something that we're going to have to work on. But then something like the Victoria Street project, if that reconstruction goes through here, whenever that is, we anticipate, to be able to clean up a lot of those and give an outlet for those type of things to go to storm, which we did on the Main Street East project. Gave those available hookups, but in reality, we've only seen a few hook up to that Main Street system. So I think what we'll have to do maybe eventually is come to sort of a Forest Connect bylaw to get that out of there. But yes, there's quite a capacity that can be gained there with getting this inflow out of the sanitary system.
Thank you.
And maybe we might have to look at a program where we do an assist somehow, but that'll be a future thing we'll be looking at.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Any other questions or comments? Okay, not hearing anybody step up, so I'll call the question. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. So thanks, Ray and Dustin, for being here and answering some questions. It's greatly appreciated. And for those reports, Jim, thanks. We'll get back to the agenda of the building department, moved by Jason, seconded by Jim, and that's the vehicle purchase. And Bev, I understand you wanted to introduce somebody as well here.
Yes, good morning, Council and Mayor. This morning I've I've asked Mr. Leonard Longton to join us. He is our new bylaw enforcer that he started on Monday, so he's quite new, but I can say he's not green to the position. So he's bringing a vast amount of experience, which is greatly appreciated. So Mr. Longton, there he is for you front and center.
Good morning.
Morning. Well, welcome on behalf of council and staff. Well, this is Wednesday already, so you got to be right up to speed on everything. But yeah, welcome to the team. great group of people to work for, and it's a great area. So we're looking forward to seeing you around.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess we want to move it.
So you want some vehicle?
Can I just chime in for a second, please?
Sure.
Just wanted to mention here that Leonard hasn't been that much of a stranger to the township workforce here. He has served as a patroller this past winter and maintaining Dundalk sidewalks and some other activities for us. So, Leonard, we much appreciate the work you've done over this winter as well.
Thank you, Jim.
Great. Okay, let's see if we're going to buy some vehicles.
Okay.
Go ahead, Doug.
So I have a report in to purchase 2 vehicles. I have revamped it a little since starting with it. Originally, I had thought about purchasing 1 vehicle for bylaw and 1 for building. So 1 would be covered by the building department and 1 would be covered by the bylaw department. Due to some communication errors, it was found that there was never a capital budget put in place for the purchase of the vehicle. So we've done some thinking here, and I believe we've come up with a solution that will not cost the taxpayers quite as much as a new vehicle. We're interested in selling our existing SUV at cost to the bylaw department and then the building department, covering the cost of 2 new vehicles. I also wanted to state that unfortunately we only received a tender from Trillium Ford for the vehicles. No one else approached us or sent anything in, and Trillium Ford has sent us both a quote for an electric hybrid and for a regular gas. This report, I'm recommending to purchase the hybrid in order to comply with our carbon footprint that Southgate has taken. So I'm here to answer questions, and I'll shut up and let you move on.
Okay, let's see if there are any questions. Barbara?
Thank you. Just one. Hi, Bev. Nice to see you, and welcome, Leonard. The hybrid vehicle that you have today, I'm curious, obviously you're recommending another hybrid, so that's serving the department well? You're not finding you need to charge in the middle of Southgate somewhere?
Through the mayor.
Go ahead, Bev.
The hybrid, all of these hybrids are gas and electric, so they back up with a gas system. So yes, the mileage is much improved with the electric system. It does charge every time you put your foot on the brake, going down the hills of Southgate into the hollows, that kind of thing. So it's working out very well. I'm impressed with the electric or the hybrid vehicle. I'm not that impressed. Well, the car is a great vehicle when I'm in town. Out in the country, it has its limitations.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Okay, not seeing or hearing any others. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, that is carried. Thanks, Bev. Next, we move on to Kevin's report. Moved by Martin, seconded by Barbara, and this is the lawn maintenance contract. Kevin, did you want
No, the report stands for itself. I'll just take questions if there is any.
to? Okay, thanks, Kevin. Are there any questions? Brian?
Thanks, John, and good morning, Kevin. I guess I do have a little concern around the contractor that is being recommended, and not because I know the contractor, because I don't, and I've not heard anything bad or good, but the pricing of this particular contractor is way below the rest of the quotes. And I'm wondering, what's your comfort level that they're going to be able to do what they say they're going to do at the price that they've quoted here? I mean, it just seems a little bit hard to believe. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, to answer that, that was my first phone call. I phoned him right away and said, are you confident you can do this contract at this price? And he is a newer guy, but he redrove it and said, yeah, I'll take it on at that price. He says he can do it. The other side of that too is when you see the prices coming in, it's probably where we're heading. We probably, if this is the tender prices that are coming in from the contractors, we'll likely never tender her out again. It's too expensive to cut grass at that. That's you total that up at $1,250, such as the top line. That's a man's wages. That gives us another employee, and we were cutting grass in these facilities at 2 days a week. So I would gain 3 days of employment at that price. So yeah, when these prices come in, I was quite shocked. And yes, the other, to agree with your point, his price was shockingly low, but he's going to do it. And I said, I guess if you can't and you got to bail on it, we'll see what the repercussions are. But the other side is we'll be taking it on at these prices. It's just too expensive to cut grass and subcontract it out at these quotes.
Well, that's good. I'm not surprised. I hear your confidence there. I certainly was not advocating that we should take on another employee to cut grass, but I still think it's better to contract it out. But in any case, I wish this gentleman good luck, and I look forward to seeing the good work that he does over the course of the summer. Thank you, Kevin.
Any other questions or comments?
Martin here, John.
Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you. You can hear me? Yeah. Hi, Kevin. Yeah, I was looking at that too, the low prices, and I would assume he's going to be doing the work himself. He probably wouldn't have a crew with prices like that because he's just looking after himself getting started. So, and coming from Wingham, is he right out of Wingham, or is that where his office is, or because they are quite low, but. So
he has other contracts.
Does he have a crew?
So he's working over. His other job is in the Ayton area too. So he is working in our area. So okay. I think he's reaching out to get more work in our area to make it worthwhile for bringing the truck over too. So I think knowing his contracts that he already has, he can bid a little lower than some of the other ones based on that. He's not just cutting us in the area too.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Not seeing or hearing any. Is anyone opposed to the motion? And that is carried. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Next, we'll move on to Lacey's report, and that is moved by Jim and seconded by Michael about the overdue fines. Hi, Lacey. Do you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I will just clarify a little bit. So on February 17th, 2022, the library board agreed to discontinue the use of library fines. So what that means is we will no longer be charging for overdue material. So that $25 to $1 fine every day it was late. Within our circulation policy, we do have some parameters in place to help make sure items are brought back. So we'll be calling patrons at certain intervals, 1 week, 2 weeks, etc. And then at 8 weeks, they will be charged for the replacement cost of the item. If they return that item, that replacement cost gets waived. So there is some parameters there for making sure our items come back. But a lot of research has been done in the last few years around library fines in the library world that they're really not doing what they're meant to do, and they're actually more of a barrier to people than getting our books back. We actually have one instance, which is kind of a win for us, where a youth hadn't come into the library for a few years because they had some fines. A friend informed them that we no longer have fines, that they could bring that book back and come back to the library, and they recently have. So it's been a positive thing so far in the short term that we've had it. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thanks. Are there any questions? World's quiet right now, so I'll call the question. Anyone opposed? Oh, Martin, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Lacey. I'm glad you clarified that there still will be some kind of obligation to bring the books back. When you phone them a couple of times to say that they have an overdue item, at what point will you say to them, if you don't bring it back in, are you going to tell them that early about the length of time, or more closer to the actual time where you're going to apply, you can't, you have to bring it back now? Is there a...
I don't think we really have the script quite worked out yet. It'll be either via phone or email. But I would guess around the 4th week, we would start saying that, hey, if you're not going to return this, we may have to charge you for a replacement fee. And then we'll have that conversation then.
Yeah, okay, that sounds good. Just as long as they know that, you know, they are using the system and there is an obligation to bring it back. That's sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Usually after the first phone call, things get returned.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Thanks, Lacey.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Next, we move on to, yep, you too. Next, we move on to a motion moved by Brian, seconded by Martin, and that's the donations to the Holstein Ag Expo. So it's good that's coming back. Liam, did you want to add anything to this?
Just to summarize that they've applied for funding, which this doesn't qualify for, so I am requesting a grant of $2,500.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the question. Oh, Brian, go ahead.
Just real quick, John, just to say that I know the organizers are looking forward to another event this year. It was really successful last year, and so it'll probably be more so this year, you know, given the right weather and all the rest. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Yeah, and a lot of good events in that direction of the township. So it's good. Anything further from anybody? Okay, I will call a question then. Is anyone opposed to this motion? And that is carried. Thanks, Liam. Okay, now we have some of Lindsay's reports. Moved by Jason, seconded by Michael, and that's the council correspondence policy. Do you want to add anything about this, Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Not a whole lot. The draft is there with the track changes, pardon me, in red, and I'll bring it back pending any comments or questions by council to the next meeting by bylaw. This was just updated. It hadn't been updated in quite a few years, and just with the changes we've made to our agendas, how we have consent items and that sort of thing now, it just needed some refreshing. I did have a comment about the funding announcements. If something is, time sensitive, that sort of thing, we absolutely would share that with council. So I'll be adding a line in to the final draft about that. But other than that, I'll just take questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Martin here, John.
World's a quiet place again. Oh, okay,
Martin
go ahead,
here,
Martin.
John. Good morning, Madam Clerk.
Yep, go ahead.
With the correspondences, does that include in the last year we've had letters out in the public that have been sent in to you and Dave to look at? Does that include those unsigned letters that are quite negative? Because they're directed to staff and council. So
sure. So I think staff, just depending what the correspondence was about, staff would determine whether it should go to council or perhaps a closed session. It would just depend on the circumstance, for sure.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you, John. Just a point that Martin has raised there. Are we in the habit of dealing with unsigned letters? In my mind, unless somebody's going to put their name to something, it goes in the round file.
And yeah, to Deputy Mayor Millen's point, that's kind of, we've received them in the past and staff have dealt with them, but I don't disagree with your comment. If it should be a signed letter for sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the question then. Is anyone opposed to this motion? That is carried. Next, we have moved by Martin, seconded by Jim, the April 20th meeting start time. Anything you want to add to that, Lindsay?
I don't think so, Mayor Woodbury. It's out in the report there. We are the clerks of Grey County. All of us have collaborated on an event for potential candidates and third-party advertisers for the upcoming election. And I just, unfortunately, it happened to fall, the majority of everyone agreed on the exact date and time of our council meeting, which was too bad for us, but that's why this report's coming forward. Now it will be recorded and it will be available on our website, but I just think that any people that normally attend our meetings, whether that be a current member or members of the public that are interested in attending that event, I wouldn't want to curtail that by having a meeting at the exact same time. But that's up to council. Now, like I said, it will be on our website for viewing after, so we don't necessarily have to change our meeting, but I just brought it forward as I think it would be best. And I believe doing it at 1 o'clock saves us from some other conflicts we've had in the past. And we did do this at the beginning of COVID and it seemed to work okay. So I just thought for this one, we could move it up to 1.
Okay, thanks. Any comments or questions? Okay, I'll call the question then. Anyone opposed? That's carried. So it seems like it was a good idea. Next, we have moved by Michael, seconded by Martin, and that's the false alarm bylaw. Anything you want to add to that?
So through you, Mayor Woodbury, this one came to the Police Service Board. They actually asked that I bring forward a bylaw, and I've had a draft or two to them, and they've now approved the bylaw. I did get a note about one little section that I missed where it says 60, I gotta find it in here, but it's wrote as 60, but it should say 90 days. I'll have to look up the section, but I will change that just as a friendly amendment. That should have been included. But The Police Service Board has approved this, and it does need council approval as well, as it would be a fee in our fees and charges. And that's the other thing I wanted to discuss, or wanted some feedback from council. The Police Service Board is looking at kind of a one-time fee. The County of Wellington is $300. So I'm just wondering if council wants to align with something similar like that, or any kind of comments would be appreciated for that. And I'll bring back a recommendation to the next meeting in the fees and charges bylaw with the help of our treasurer. But this is basically for at-fault false alarm calls, and the money would be recouped and stay with the municipality to hopefully recover some of those costs.
Okay. Questions or comments? Brian.
Thank you, John. Lindsay, would this charge be a discretionary charge to some extent by, the responding officer for whatever reason, or is it don't matter if it's a false alarm, charge billed?
Yes, that would be the Deputy Mayor. Now, there is obviously the appeals process that someone could go through if they don't believe that, the charge was warranted and that sort of thing, and then it would be looked at. But that would be the intent. Yes, if it's an at-fault false alarm, then yes, they would have to pay the fine or be charged the fine.
But to be clear, there is an appeals process.
That's correct. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
Martin here, John. Hi, Lindsay again. With the appeals.
Go ahead, Martin.
Thank you. With the appeals, Lindsay, where do they go to make the appeal? Is it to the township or is it to the police, or?
It would be, Councillor Shipton, it would be to the Police Service Board.
Okay. And would there be any cost there on their part that they would be adding on to the fine to get,
That's not currently
There's going to be some money all over the place.
It's not currently built in the bylaw, but if council wishes, we can make that amendment.
Well, I was just wondering where they go to that make you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead, Barb.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question from Councillor Shipton. It was on my end probably, so that I can understand Lindsay's answer.
I think, if I may, Mayor Woodbury, it was if the person had to pay like an appeal, like to pay to appeal it, which isn't right now wrote into the bylaw.
Thank you.
That was my understanding of Councillor Shipson's question anyway.
Yeah. Okay, Martin, was there anything else?
No, John, the main thrust of the question was with the appeals, where they went to, and it goes to the police board. And that was the main intent of the question. So it might be something to look at though with costs. So anyway, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Barbara.
Jason.
Okay.
No, Jason, then Barbara.
I'm just curious, like who, in people's minds, it might not have been a false alarm. Who decides whether it's a false alarm? And when we're paying for our police services anyways, why are we going after the fee? Wouldn't that be the police, not the board, but the association? I'm just wondering why we would be going after the false alarm fines and why they wouldn't. And who decides it? It's kind of a weird question, but I mean, somebody calls for something, or is it just totally, I'm not sure when false alarm, what does that actually mean? I guess I'm trying to say.
So, Councillor Rice, it would be like, say, if you had an alarm system on your house, just as an example, and you accidentally, like you set it off kind of like at fault, like if someone were to break into your home, that of course wouldn't be charged. Like, it would be if it was not kind of an emergency situation, basically. is when it would be charged, when it was unnecessary for the police to show up.
So it's just an alarm, not a phone call thinking you need the police and then.
Oh, no, no, no,
Okay,
no.
I just want to make sure that, yeah.
No, it's not for like a missed 911 call. No, no.
Okay, no, good. I'm not that.
And
bright.
as far as the question about the
And
fees, so it would be recouped to us, which would in turn like level out our billing of these calls is the intent.
Yeah, just to add to that, because as well as the big formula, but by cutting down on the false alarm calls, we'll also cut down on our future costs. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Barbara?
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Lindsay. And we had the discussion. There doesn't appear to be any first false alarm. You get a warning. It's you get a false alarm, and bang, you got $385 fine. And then you got to go through the appeal process, take a day off work to attend the police services board meeting. And it may be at, I'm just wondering if there should be the first false alarm is waived for a period of time so that people are educated. They get sent a letter or something. And that, the communication and the education of this, I would like to know what the frequency is of it. Is it more commercial than residential? Is it more when people are trying to set up their system and for some reason it's the alarm is being monitored by the police? And what is driving? I understand having to recoup our costs because police costs just keep skyrocketing. How do you propose this to go forward? Because I'd like to see an education period with a warning at some point in time. We're just not going to respond anymore. I get that.
Yeah. Through the mayor to you, Councillor DeBreen. The police service board I did have that in one of my drafts, and they did take that out. And rather than doing a graduated fine, just opted to hopefully have one fine, but it is up to council with the fees and charges. So if council would rather that, then we can build that in. But that would take more administrative, which would possibly cost more, or would, but I just wonder if we start doing warning letters and that sort of thing, if that's more of an administrative toll. But I see your point too. And we don't have to set it at 385. That's what Wellington County did. It could be, say, 200. We need to look to make sure we are recovering costs, but I see it from both sides. That's why I was a little, I guess, torn, you could say, on what to recommend to council this time.
Follow up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Lindsay. And while I'm not saying that on our fees and charges, it would be the first time, but that we instruct the OPP that for a period of time, 6 months, let's say, that when they are called out and it is determined to be clearly a false alarm, that they, put a Post-it note on the person's door or something if they're not home, or inform them of the incident. And then after a certain period of time, we've tried to get the word out, we've educated, we've circulated the bylaw, we've posted it on social media, you do what you can. And I'm all in favor of making sure that this fine, whatever it is to recoup all the costs, including the potential appeal, because and if the police services board deems that, the circumstances deem or warrant the reversal, then staff have to reverse the charges and put it through the invoicing system, and that all costs extra. So I'm hoping that even $385 is sufficient to cover those costs. I would like to propose that there be a 6-month education window.
Yeah, and we can, Councillor DeMarine, I can discuss that with our detachment commander. I think that's more than reasonable while we try to educate and get the word out there. And I think it was you that I maybe mentioned to. I did have 2 alarm companies actually reach out asking if we had a bylaw. So I think companies are aware that municipalities do possibly have them in place, and they're doing their due diligence by checking ahead. So, but I do think that would be worthy too, to just give people a little bit of grace.
Okay, Brian?
Thanks, John. I guess I'm a little hesitant to push back on the Police Services Board. I mean, the false alarm issue should not be a surprise to anybody because it's been an ongoing issue for years. And this is the Police Services Board's recommendation to deal with the issue. I'm a little hesitant to support or to push back on that. If they made the conscious decision to not have a phase-in period, then I'm not prepared to support any change to that recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
If I may.
I was just wondering, do we know, like, roughly a year how many false alarms we have? And yeah, I guess that's just roughly, do we have an Indian number?
I was just going to say I might refer to Councillor Prue on that.
Yeah.
2018, there was 24 false alarms. 2019, it was 39. 2020, it was 38. 2021 was 51. So far this year, there's been 9.
Okay. Okay. Barb.
So just to Deputy Mayor Milne's concern, and I understand it, what Lindsay had responded to me was that originally the bylaw that was presented to the Police Services Board included a warning on or no charge for the first false alarm, and then the fee for the second, and a third you're just cut off. They don't respond at all. And so I was in favor of not having that as a permanent suggestion, but that we take some time to educate people. That's, up to council, and I just want to make sure that we're educating, putting it out there. Obviously, Lindsay, this is more about alarm companies that provide monitoring service, as opposed to people who have sirens on their house if there's an entry or a break-in, and cameras. I can go either way. I was just suggesting it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, then since it is a bylaw, I'll turn it over to you, Lindsay.
No, Mayor Woodbury, we just have to approve it by resolution. The Police Service Board's already passed the bylaw. They enacted it. It's just hinging on council's approval too.
Okay, then I'll call the question. Is anyone opposed to this motion?
Clarification, Mr. Mayor Woodbury?
That is. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wondered if we need a resolution to have, the bylaw isn't here yet. It has to come back to council. Is that correct?
No. So the bylaw's been approved by the Police Service Board. It's just the last clause of the bylaw was that it wouldn't be in effect until council approved it. So this is council approving it. All that's being brought back is the fees and charges amendment to include a fine.
So without a resolution indicating that we would go back to the OPP and consult about a 3 or 6 month grace period, this is being voted on today, and it'll go in and it'll be implemented.
That's correct, yeah.
Mayor Woodbury, I'd like to propose an amendment that there be a
Okay.
grace period investigated.
Okay.
For education purposes.
Do I have a, okay. Do I have a seconder? Okay, it appears I don't have a seconder. So we'll go back to the main motion. Any further comments on that before I call the question? Okay, is anyone opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, we have one person opposed.
Could we do a recorded vote for Woodbury when we have an opposition, please?
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called for staff report CL 2022-009, the Police Service Board bylaw, false alarm bylaw. Councillor Frew?
I'm for it.
Sorry, that was a yes, Councillor Frew?
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen?
Opposed?
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
By a vote of 6 to 1, that's carried.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Next we have, thanks for your report there, Lindsay. Next we have Jim's report, moved by Barb, seconded by Jason, and that's the
The report is for the hazardous waste, the hazardous and special waste agreement. This is just following up on the transition that's carried over to update that agreement that we previously had as well.
okay. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Martin here, John.
Martin?
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks. Jim, with this bylaw going into effect, what would the timing be for the has-beens to be reopened and started to move back and forth between the two transfer sites?
Well, that's a different kettle of fish we're dealing with right now. We have contacted a provider to see if they would come and empty the bin at this point in time, and they had some logistics they were working around, but ultimately they haven't contacted us back. But we're getting ready to release a request for a quote for this service. Just finalizing that report to go out, but it's kind of looking like it won't get a move here back to Dundalk with the quarterly sequence that we have. And because of the way our schedules read and everything, I'm thinking that it'll be a little bit yet before it goes to Dundalk back in its regular cycle.
Okay.
But we are collecting at Egremont currently.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I thought they would be kind of part and parcel with each other. So as long as we're doing it and we're getting somebody in, and that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, this isn't
Okay,
part of
thanks.
piece of what we're experiencing right now with our
Yeah.
our past service provider.
Okay. No, that's my mistake. Sorry. Good to know though.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. Anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, that is carried. Next, moved by Martin, seconded by Jim, is the bylaw to go with it. Any comments? Okay, hearing none. Lindsay, I'll let you do this vote.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote for bylaw 2022-042, the Product Care Association amending agreement. Councillor Dobreen,
In favor?
Councillor Shearson,
Yes.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mills.
Yay.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And next we have moved by Barbara, seconded by Brian, and that's the sidewalk machine. Anything you want to add to that, Jim?
Just again that we had had a request to look into the emission standards and being compliant with a Tier 4 versus a Tier 3 engine. Again, according to some legislation there, that there can be replacements in older machines with other engines. And I know the report said that we had emailed Environment Canada on some information and interpretation. And I actually got back on Monday an email from them. And basically it confirms such that that if the company's done their due diligence and tried to meet all the expectations and the engine is like for like, that they can be a replacement engine as outlined. So we've confirmed that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Just a question, John.
Okay, Jason, and then Brian.
Oh, no, I just wondered, Jim,
Jason and then Brian.
what other attachments, Jim, can this machine put on it other than the blower and the salter? And I just wondered if we could, for other purposes.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if John can see me, so I'll just come back in. But
go ahead.
We do have an extension on the sidewalk blower machine that we currently have that can blow into trucks, and we use that occasionally downtown when we can manage that operation if it's in a timely manner. We don't do that if the snow banks are 3 feet high. These will also take the brooms that we have for them, so we can do sweeping with those is what we put on those attachments as well. But basically, that's all we have at this point in time for them for attachments.
Okay, thank you. Brian.
Thank you, John. Jim, regarding warranty under the two machines, is the warranty stated there just for the motor, or is it for the entire machine? Or could you clarify that a little bit, please?
That warranty is for the entire machine plus the engine.
So it's 2 years or 2,000 hours. on the machine
Yes.
you're recommending.
Correct.
And that's for the entire machine.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a pretty good warranty, 2,000 hours. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Jason?
Just kind of curious, what kind of hours do we put on one of those machines now? Per year, I guess.
I would have to, it changes year by year with the amount of snow is, and we do sweeping with it like we indicate, but I would have to check back. I don't really have that off the top of my head.
No problem. I just kind of curious. Yep.
Just to go back on the warranty, the two-year 2000 is on the engine and 12 months or 1,200 operating hours on the rest of the machine. Sorry, Brian. I just pulled it up here. So.
No, that's fine. That's what I thought it read like, but I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll call the question on that. Is anyone opposed? And that is carried. Thanks, Jim. Next, we move on to Dave's report. We have moved.
Mayor Woodbury, you just kind of cut out there. His first report is moved by Councillor Shipston and seconded by Councillor Shearson.
That's right, and it's the old Dundalk Hall report. So Dave, if you'd like to add anything.
Yeah, just the highlights on this report is we had hoped to get things back for final approval, but a few delays with both lawyers and so on. It's still under some final review by Wellington. When we did some title searching, we found a couple things on title. One was a heritage designation that hadn't surfaced in the files, and the other was a previous agreement for an easement that was put on by Dundalk in the 80s, the early 80s, and that document doesn't survive that owner, and it will be taken off the registration. But as far as the heritage designation, Wellington is aware of that and accepts that, and we will putting information into the agreement, the Wellington agreement, to acknowledge that, and that he will take on that responsibility of the heritage status. At this point in time, those agreements, and the other thing is we have got insurance review, and that's been complete, so that some changes there will be reflected. And the plan is to bring it back to the April 20th council meeting for final approval.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from council?
Barbara?
Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you. Through you. Dave, just a couple of things. This heritage status, we had discovered this years ago that there had been a handwritten bylaw or something by a previous council, but that it had appeared at that time that it had never been registered on title, but now it has surfaced. Does that change any of the requirements for life safety? And because, I mean, heritage carries with it some, I think, forgiveness as to, or it can also burden in that regard the improvements made to the, I believe, the exterior of the structure. But I mean, not well versed on heritage status. I think there's a difference between heritage and historical.
That's correct. This document wasn't handwritten. It was a Dundalk bylaw from, I believe, 1996. It is registered on title, and it might be 86, but I'll stand corrected on that. But it was in the 80s or 90s that was put in place. The status, it had, like I said, has been accepted by Wellington. He has dealt with heritage buildings before, and it is not an issue for him. And I think that's the main, crux, that he has to assume that heritage status when he buys the building. As far as there is some approval process required in the exterior of the building, and again, he's aware of those kind of things.
Thank you. Follow up, one more.
Yep.
So the other question I had was based on our discussions that the last time this came before Council, Deputy Mayor Milne and a few other comments about concern over ongoing capital cost. The intent of this proposal was to get out from underneath, get the taxpayer out from underneath ongoing capital costs, as Deputy Mayor Milne said. And I'm just wondering, have you been able to clarify or resolve our concerns regarding those ongoing capital costs? Perhaps be more specific about what those costs would entail, or what we would be willing to entertain, as opposed to blanketing capital costs.
Yep. So, yeah, we have had a conversation about that, and I guess when I said, about the capital costs being shared, and as well as insurance and all these other things, in discussions with our lawyer, he indicated those kind of things are, a negotiation thing. They are all over the place, and it's reflective of, the initial rent payment. And I guess when I threw that at Wellington staff and Mr. Stanton and talked to him about that, his comment was, well, you're only paying me $3,000 a month. And that did kind of hit me. And I think if we take that in context for a building that has all the features that that building has, the typical rent for a house is $2,000 a month. So I guess that's my only thought about it. I mean, it's a negotiation point. When we get the Wellington agreement before us, we can pause on that agreement and, get council's direction on the actual document. But we continue to have discussions on that issue, and we'll see where it lands when I get it to council, whether we can, regress on some part of that, those costs. But again, it'll be council's final decision when we come before you.
Thank you.
Okay, Brian, and then Jason.
Thank you, John. To Dave, I can appreciate the comment regarding the level of rent that we're paying or propose to be paying. We're also selling them the building for, what is it, $1,000 or $1 or something like that. You don't buy a house for $1,000 and then charge $2,000 a month rent either. So, I mean, I appreciate it. It's all part of a negotiation, but I think we need to negotiate maybe a little bit harder. That's my comment at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I understand.
thanks.
Maybe just a comment to that, Mayor. I understand those comments, but usually when you buy a house, you don't take on the requirements of life safety and building upgrades and so on that they're assuming. So we're selling him the bones of a building, and he has to bring it up to code. So, I mean, I'm just taking the position of that would be the argument that's going to get thrown back at us in relation to that. But I understand it fully from a township perspective. We don't want to spend any more than we need to, or we don't want to be, in a position to be on the hook for something that we shouldn't be paying for.
Okay, Jason.
Oh yeah, well, Brian kind of said what I was going to say. I think I said it last time. It just seems so vague. Like, we're selling it to him for $1,000, and if you're going to bring it to the next meeting, we're going to vote yes or no. And I'd just like some clarification. Who is paying for what? And I hope we have that in the last report, I guess, because to me, it just seems like we're just going to kind of leave it up in midair and see what happens down the road, where I'm not comfortable with that at all.
Yeah, okay. Agreed. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, you have the motion before you. Is anyone opposed?
I'm opposed, John.
Okay. You are? Okay. Lindsay, I'll get you to do the vote, please.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called on staff report CAO 2022-014, the Dundalk Old Town Hall final agreements report. Councillor Rice?
No.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury? Mayor Woodbury?
Sounds like my microphone's working great. Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Shearson?
No, did you get that?
No, I didn't get that.
No.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Dobreen?
In favor.
Councillor Frew?
No.
I vote a 4-3, that has carried.
Okay, thank you. And next we move on to the affordable housing proposal. And that is moved by Michael and seconded by Jim. Do you want to comment on that, Dave?
Yeah, sure. This report came about by more discussions with the Affordable Housing Committee and the Southeast Grey Community Health Center. Then worked up a document, and it's in the report about how this whole thing would get funded and so on. What I'm recommending is that, I mean, this is not in any way, shape, or form approving it, but just that maybe clause 2 would be the one we would support if it gets support, to look at financing the affordable housing project through Infrastructure Ontario. There is another option through the county about talking to Canada Mortgage and Housing, but that this would be supported to start the project and then turn it over to a local mortgage and housing corporation that the Affordable Housing Committee has as a strategic initiative to explore and put in place for whether that's Southgate or South Grey area that would take on that whole affordable housing management and so on. It's a bit of a unique idea that was presented to us, but it's in by no means for the first 30 years going to fund itself. It would take dollar support. We did approach Southeast Grey Support Services to take on the project, with the township's involvement and support and Southeast Grey Community Health Center, but they declined it. They're more focusing on the conversion of the Lions Medical Center to a 7-unit affordable housing unit in likely 2023, 2024. So we're working on that as well with them. But this is just an opportunity that has presented itself. It's likely about a 5-month window we have to explore and figure things out, but it would put 10 affordable housing units on a dedicated floor that would be owned by, I guess, the township, and then eventually by the Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and be established at whatever rents, like in the scenarios I have presented, a $600 rent and a $1,200, I think $20 rent for half of them, or all of them at $600. But it shows the recovery cost of the actual project would be about $1,700 a month, pay off the $3.5 million estimate construction cost over 30 years. So anyway, we bring this before you just for some discussion, and if there's interest, we can proceed maybe with option 2, and if there's not interest, we should insert clause.
Brian?
Thank you, John. And I want to thank the Affordable Housing Committee for looking at all manner of new housing in the township. And I'm not necessarily opposed to looking into the implications of financing and all the rest of it, but I'm wondering about the unintended consequences of doing such a project. What floor would this make it? The 4th floor of the building, Dave?
The discussions are putting, and nothing's finalized, but there would be 3 floors. The 3rd floor might be a part floor. It might not be the whole complex. The discussions were a palliative care on the 3rd floor, but this would put a 4th story on the building, whatever that might look like.
Right. So I'm wondering, has anyone spoke to the fire chief about the implications of putting another 4th floor building in the township, or in Dundalk particularly? And all the rest of the servicing and engineering for the rest of the building to sustain a 4th floor. Those are all questions that I'd need answered before I would proceed with anything of this nature. But again, kudos to the Housing Committee for suggesting this. Thank you.
Yeah, just to respond to that, I'm going to stand corrected on that, but I believe when we get into the 5th and 6th floors, that's when you need a ladder truck. The issue of the 5th and a 5th and 6th floor, and I'm talking in general terms, that's a road we're going to have to cross someday, because if you're going to create affordable housing, we had this very discussion, Martin and Michael and the mayor will remember as well, that's where you get into efficiencies of construction in an apartment complex and putting those extra floors on, because your footprint on the ground is similar, and your site servicing and all that sort of stuff. It's just a matter of adding the bricks and mortar up top. So, but those are, as you say, unintended consequences that, but as we grow as a community, that's definitely going to be an issue, and it's going to have to be a saw off with the added cost versus the efficiency of builds and affordability of housing. So it's let's call it a conundrum.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Martin here, John.
Martin?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Dave, that's what I thought of, clause option number 2. But I was wondering, when you apply for the Infrastructure Ontario grant, what kind of percentage are we going to be able to get that? And are you going to use GrantMe, that company? And the second question is Local Mortgage and Housing Corporation. There were so many scenarios at those meetings. Does that mean the same thing as a condo corporation as well?
No, the condo corporation is within a development. A mortgage and housing corporation is to manage the stable of assets. So they might have 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 buildings eventually. Back to your first question, part of the problem with this project, it added, I believe it was $4,000 a month to the payments. just a change. And when we first ran the scenario, this scenario was at 2.7% through Infrastructure Ontario. This more latest version, which was just completed the first day of April, I think we ran the numbers. No, I might be wrong there. It might have been, but anyway, it was late March. The mortgage rate through Infrastructure Ontario is now 4.14. That's a pretty significant jump.
For sure.
So where is it going to be when you build? That's a whole other question. And where does that put these numbers? So, I mean, I think it was about $1,260 or $70 recovery on monthly rent just to cover the building costs. And now we've jumped that about $4,000 a month alone, just in interest. But it is an interesting concept. I'm not, again, another conundrum. Do we want to be in the housing business? That's a whole other. I think Mike, Councillor Shearson had some comment to your question as well.
Yep.
Okay, Michael?
I'm just kind of wondering with the 10 units there about parking. Now we're gonna need parking for these people that are staying in that building. Are we gonna have enough parking at that facility too? I know I'm part of the committee that's thinking we should maybe doing this, but I want to make sure we have parking for these people too, because we know they all will probably have cars. Have we looked into that?
That has not been something we have discussed with Southeast Grey, but there would have to be provisions for parking. Chances are there would be a lower percentage of this type of accommodation that would need or require parking. I think this type of accommodation would be very much reliant on the services of the building from a medical perspective. So the challenges that they would have, and they may be more apt to need the smart type service. Those are, but, I think we need to think about 5 or 6 parking spots as well for those, that's for sure. But that hasn't been something built into it. I mean, I think there is room around the facility to do that, or we might have to do indent street parking on the front of the building.
Okay. Anything else, Michael?
Yeah, I'm just kind of wondering with the planning too, if we're going to put another floor on that building, how is it going to fit in with the rest of the buildings in the area? Are we setting ourselves up with another floor in there that the local residents around it are not going to like it? We're going to block the view of everything? Be a planning thing from Clint.
Yeah. Jason, then Barbara.
Clinton has his hand up, Mayor Woodbury.
Oh, okay. Clint, go ahead.
Just to respond to Councillor Shearson, this idea is sort of in its infancy, and it hasn't been reviewed from a zoning perspective or a view shed or anything like that with respect to additional height of the building or what have you. The whole facility hasn't gone through site plan control yet. So however that shakes out, it may need a zoning amendment for parking and height and all of those sorts of things, and we'd have to evaluate it at that time.
Okay. Jason, then Barbara.
Well, I like option 3, but I just wonder, talking about the whole thing, you start mixing residential units into a building where the public's going to be coming in. I think that's going to be a little iffy in my book, but just what Dave mentioned, the way this interest rate's moved up already and where's it going to go? And I just don't think we need to be in the housing business. Like, it may be different, if you're Kitchener or Guelph or something and they do it, but the size of us, I just, we can only do so much for people, and people have enough trouble paying for their own house now to add on more tax. And I understand we're going to get the grant, but we still pay that. It's still tax money. So I just can't see it. I like option 3, but I think if you did proceed with putting those residential low income housing units in a place where the public's going to be coming, I fear you'd be looking at some trouble there too. But I like option 3.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Barbara?
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. I'm actually struggling with the maxing out our debt as well. So interest rates for mortgages are going up. We have the issue of zoning a 4th floor. Dave, you mentioned that, you know, maybe on that floor they might put palliative care. So you have, and we know what palliative care is. You have the parking issue, and you have the Southeast Grey looking at options to convert the existing Lions Medical Facility with 7 units there. I'm not certain that I want to be burdening the taxpayer with the, Dave, you mentioned first years there will be a cost to someone. And I guess this all hinges on whether or not we got the infrastructure funding anyway. I have concerns, Dave, about especially about maxing out our debt ceiling, if we're going to require debt for the mechanical wastewater facility.
So maybe I'll respond to that. Liam and I had that conversation about the debt ceiling, and we have significant space as far as, and it's not so much a debt ceiling as it is when you see numbers in relation to that, it is the amount, the capacity to make the debt payments or the interest payments on that debt. So we do have space there, and but it's what level of burden do we want to take on? That's, I think, the bigger question. And to me, the only thing we would be exploring in the next 5 months is if the reality of creating this mortgage and housing corporation, because in my mind, the township cannot take on that for the next 30 years and then become, you know, after 30 years, it gets a lot better looking because of the cost recovery. It would actually be a bit of a profit center. When it comes to, but that's 30 years out. And that's why mortgage and housing corporations are long haul organizations that's how they work and that's how they deal. The other part of it was the palliative care would not be on the same floor as the residential. That would be 2 different floors. This 10 unit floor would be of its own, and there would be a level of access code that the only people that could stop at that floor would have a certain capability or key or some sort of a, like maybe a card that would let them go to that floor. Not everybody could just jump off at that floor unless they had access credentials. Maybe, I'm not sure if I missed anything else in that, but there's no doubt. I mean, I have reserves as concerns as well. I just think, you know, if it gets turned down, it's not going to hurt my feelings, but I think we should do some more due diligence and exploration and really see if we can make this come to reality through a mortgage and housing corporation, whether we can pivot. I mean, there is money that we could pivot from a DC. I have explored that with the people at Watson's. There's more discussions to go on there, and I think we can do that as well. But there is, let me just check here, some money in DCs that could be pivoted to that's dedicated to a medical center fund right now. Again, that would have to have council approval, and it would have to, you know, be approved through the process. And I think that's somewhere between 500 and 600,000 in DCs that are sitting there for a medical center. We don't need to contribute that to the medical center, but is there a willingness to pivot that and bring the payments down, like is demonstrated, I think, in one of the scenarios, and I'm trying to find that one right now. Anyway, that's a discussion. It would bring the payments down from $8,000 a month to $4,900 a month.
Okay.
Follow up.
So, yep, go ahead, Barb.
So I guess when I read the project concerns that this would tie up Southgate's borrowing capacity until the Mortgage and Housing Corporation could be established, I'm not comfortable with tying up our borrowing capacity because we have other priorities. I understand that from your schedule that you attached, the DCs for the medical building could be allocated to these affordable units, as long as it's, so maybe you could clarify, Dave, that it would have to be part of the medical building in order for that to be done, or could we be looking at repurposing, another structure with those funds, perhaps assisting the Lions Medical Building conversion? Maybe they could add a floor to that.
Yeah, so that discussion we will have. I don't want to answer that question because I am not well enough informed. We haven't had enough discussions with Watson. The problem with adding a floor, that's already been investigated and they're rejecting that. The problem with adding a floor to the old Lions Medical Center, it would be 1.8 million. And that would be a bad investment, long term. So Southeast Grey Southeast Grey Support Services have explored that, and they are looking at just refurbing what is there and taking that on. But let me be clear, let's see here. The amount to be collected long-term for the medical center in the present DCs was looked at as 750, no, sorry. With all the deductions, it'd be 675,000 would be maxed out. Now we need to have that discussion. Can we pivot that to that medical center building for affordable housing? The answer is affordable housing qualifies. We're going to have that discussion if we want to move this further down the road. The other thing, this medical clinic, I want to be clear that medical clinic money, because it's under the Parks and Recreation bucket, could be pivoted to another facility. So these are all parts of the discussions we need to have.
So I'm always in favor, Dave, of having the information in order to decide how to go forward. I mean, the concept is, creative. We need to explore for sure the cost to the township, and affordable housing is obviously the committee has done some great work. We need to make sure that the affordable, attainable, and alternate housing stock we explore, but I wouldn't want to burden the taxpayer long term, and that is exploring the options doesn't mean we are going to do the options.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Okay. And where does the county stand on this? They look after the housing stock for the social services, Anne Marie Shaw and that group who have the experience doing it.
So through the chair, we've had those discussions as well. The county are tapped out as far as projects for the foreseeable future, and I'm thinking 5 to 10 years they are mapped out. The building on Rose Lane will be demolished. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm going to say there's 8 to 10 units or 11 units there. They will be moved to other facilities, and that facility will be expanded, I think, 3 times the size or better. The mayor, the deputy mayor may have that on the top of their head, but I think about 30 units, and I would have to dig into, but they are focused across the whole county. I've also talked about, management of this facility added on to the 3 the county do have. And she believes that that would require more staff. Like that person's kind of pretty much consumed with those 3 buildings. Adding a 4th might be more onerous. So, I mean, that's something down the road that, to me, the Mortgage and Housing Corporation would have to deal with. But those are all discussions that we'd have to have if we're going to go with anything but option 3. Do we just kind of put it there and keep exploring and talking, or do we shut it down today? That's really the question. This is not making the decision to do anything, spend the money, transfer the DCs or anything. It's just keeping the project alive so that Southeast Grey Community Health Center still realize it may be on the radar.
Okay.
So
I think we're probably at the point now. Oh, go ahead, Brian.
Thanks, John. Just a quick comment, and I could appreciate the concern about unburdening the taxpayer further, but we're in the affordable housing business, whether you want to admit it or not. There's all kinds of studies have been shown that if people have safe, secure housing, all kinds of social determinants improve. So, whether you want to fund mental health, addictions, it just goes on and on and on. If people have good housing that they can call their own and it's safe, there's a payback to the taxpayer. So I wouldn't dismiss this out of hand. I think it's well worth looking into the implications and all the rest of it, as we've all discussed. But I would really not want to see this just get dismissed out of hand today. So I'm going to support option 2, and I think that's where we need to go for now. Thank you.
John,
okay. So
I'll maybe make one more.
I think that's the point we're at. Option. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment,
Go ahead,
which
Dave.
is, the comment I want to make is just in the last few months, we've started having discussions, and one discussion is with a developer in the Mount Forest area, and that wanted to do a project in Southgate, and also in Dundalk, someone that wants to buy lots and create developments. And these haven't been brought to council at all. I know there's been others talking about some of this, but these are companies that employ people, and they're having a hard time to get people to work for them that can afford to live here. So they're looking at actually creating employee housing that they would, let's call it, make it affordable housing. It would be subsidized on their dime so that they can be assured they got people showing up to work to do the jobs they need done for their business. So those are kind of, I'm not sure if it's concerning. It's refreshing that the employers are willing to invest in that and have confidence in our community, has that type of and requirements. But it does, I think, send a bit of a message that this is a real problem, this affordable housing thing. Well, we know that. I don't have to say it. It just piles on to where things are at.
Yep. I think we're at the point now. Brian mentioned that option 2. So I think if that is the option we want to vote on, I think it's time to put that option in, and go from there. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none.
Just Mayor Woodbury,
Let's vote on, yep,
I just want to make sure option 2 is okay with the mover and seconder to be the
okay.
one on the table.
That would be Mike,
Yeah.
yeah, Michael and Jim. Is that okay with both of you?
Who was the seconder? Mayor Woodbury, you cut out
We go
there
with
for
option
my
2.
audio.
It's okay with me,
Oh.
Michael.
Jim. Okay, Michael. And Jim, are you okay as a seconder?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So we've got mover and seconder, good for option 2. Any other discussion on that? Is anyone opposed to it? Opposed to the
Yeah, I
motion?
am, John.
Should
I
make
like
that clear.
option 3.
Okay, so Lindsay, you can do the vote, please.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called for staff report CAO 2022-015, and that is with the option number 2. I will just read it. There are a few callers. I'll just read it out so everyone is clear on what the vote is. So clause option 2 is that council directs staff to look into financing the affordable housing project through Infrastructure Ontario to fund the cost until the Affordable Attainable Housing Committee is able to develop plans for a local mortgage and housing corporation to be established and take over the responsibility of the loan and the project. So that's what we're voting on. Councillor Doreen?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston? I can't hear you, Councillor Shipston. Your audio didn't work there. Maybe just, okay, you're giving me a thumbs up. I will take that as a yes from Councillor Shipston. Councillor Rice?
No.
By a vote of 6-1, that is carried.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we take a break until about, yep, go ahead, Barbara.
No, that was going to be my request, a short leg stretch. Well, not short legs, but
Okay.
I have short legs.
Yeah. We're going to come back for 5 after. Is that enough time? Sure. Okay, so 5 after 11. We'll see you then. Well, I've got 5 after, so we'll call the meeting back to order. Got a motion moved by Jim, seconded by Martin. And this is Clint's reports. And this is staff report 2022-018. Clint, did you want to speak some words of wisdom about this report?
You're asking the wrong person for that, I think. But no, I'm fine. I'll take it.
Are there any questions on this? Not hearing any. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Okay, that is carried. And next we have the bylaw to go with that, moved by Barbara, seconded by Michael. Any comments or questions on this one? Okay, Lindsay, I'll get you to do the
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote for bylaw 2022-043, zoning bylaw amendment for Moses and Anna Bauman. Councillor Shipston? Your audio's still not working, Councillor Shipston. I'm not sure what's, you just want to give me a,
Yes.
there we go. That worked. Thank you. Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen?
In favor?
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Shearson? Councillor Shearson?
I wonder what that is.
Councillor Shearson, I know you're there, so your audio's not working. If you turn your camera on and maybe just give me a thumbs up or down. Okay, that's a thumbs up from Councillor Shearson, so that's a yes. Mayor Woodbury?
yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. Next, moved by Brian, seconded by Michael, and that's the site plan agreement for that. I'll just ask for words this time if you have any, Clinton.
I'll just let it be.
Okay. All right, any questions or comments from council? Okay, is anyone opposed to this? That is carried. And now we have the bylaw to go with that, moved by Martin, seconded by Jim. Any discussion on that bylaw? Okay, Lindsay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called for bylaw 2022-044, which is the site plan agreement for Moses and Anna Bauman. Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Dobreen?
In favor?
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Councillor Shearson? Looks like you don't have any audio at all. Does your camera work, Councillor Shearson?
That's weird. Very strange.
Councillor Shearson, are you there? Okay, we'll mark Councillor Shearson absent, so by a vote of 6-0, that is carried.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Clint, for those words. Next, we have the appointment for the bylaw officer, bylaw enforcement officer, moved by Jason, seconded. Well, if Michael's not here, I'll need a seconder. Brian? Any discussion on this? Okay, Lindsay, go ahead, please, with the vote.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote for bylaw 2022-046, the appointment bylaw for our bylaw enforcement officer Leonard Longton. Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Councillor Frew,
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen,
In favor?
and Councillor Shearson is absent. By a vote of 6-0, that is carried.
Okay, thank you. And we said before, I'd like to welcome Leonard, and now he's official. And he's been working since Monday, so he's got it all down pat. Next, we have notices of motion. I didn't receive any. Lindsay, did you? No? Okay. And I don't see anybody jumping up saying they have one, so we can move on to the next one then, is the regular consent items. And that's moved by Barbara, seconded by Jim. I didn't get any of these to be pulled. Did anyone have anything? Barbara?
Not to pull, just to comment.
Okay. So we haven't heard of any to pull, so we'll go on to the comments for them. Go ahead. Barbara?
Thank you for the, just got to get the right number, the 12.1.1, the CAO 2021 work plan and 2022 goals. It indicates in that, Dave, that staff are requesting a market check for all positions. And I couldn't recall when the last time we did a market check. I'm pretty sure we did one. Might have been in the last term of council, might have been at the beginning of this one. Do you recall? And I'm not opposed to that being done again, but perhaps it should be township-wide, including council. I noted the Blue Mountains did a market check recently. You should see what they get paid. Their council gets paid.
Dave, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so the last time we did the market check was, I remember very clearly, it was in late 2017, early 2018. So by the time we implemented, it was partway about middle of the year or early part of the, I should say about the second quarter we implemented it. And that was the last time we really did market check on all positions.
Okay.
So follow up, Mayor Woodbury, what, Dave, do you need from council to push that forward? Or are you proceeding to do it regardless? Not sure. It's in the, you mention it, but you don't say that it is a goal to complete.
Yeah, so those discussions have kind of, heightened in the last few weeks. So the HR coordinator will be bringing that back to council for approval to go out and do a full market check. If that's definitely where we get, but I think that's likely the outcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions or comments on the 12.1 consent agenda? Okay. Is anyone opposed to the motion? And that is carried. And next we have, is Michael still gone?
Yes.
Okay, so I need a mover for the correspondence consent agenda. Brian, and that is seconded by Jason. I don't have anything pulled for that one either. Any comments on that? Barbara?
I had a brief discussion with our clerk, Lindsay, about 12.2.4, the Wardens Forum on June 16th. And I believe that maybe Lindsay just wants to inform council of how we'll proceed on that. so that you can fulfill the obligation to send in the attendee list.
Okay, Lindsay?
Sure, through you, Mayor Woodbury. So yeah, I'll just send an email out to members just to gauge who would like to attend, and then I'll update the county with that as they would like a formal attendance list from each municipality. And it is covered through our policy 21, so there's no need of a formal resolution.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on any of the other items in that? Okay, Barb?
Sorry, 12.2.9, the IESO engagement letter. I read the links and the descriptions, and they are looking to engage with municipal staff as well as to how it's information sessions about emerging electricity needs and the role that municipalities have in a procurement process. There's two dates, April 12th and 19th, and I just wondered if this was on staff's radar, perhaps from the CAO or the planner, or I'm just wondering what the province is going to try and push through as far as other electricity options. So it might be something that we want to be flies on the wall, or I just didn't want staff not to be aware of it.
Okay. Dave, did you want to comment on that?
We are watching this engagement process. There hasn't been a lot of discussions about it yet in the CAO realm, but we're also looking at Wellington North Power for some advice on this as well, since we're a partner there. But we'll be watching as that unfolds, and I'm sure there'll be discussions at OGRA as well, because IESO usually have a booth there, I believe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on the 12.2 items? Okay, is anyone opposed to the motion? That is carried. And next we have the 12.3 resolutions from other municipalities consent item, moved by Brian, seconded by Martin. And again, I don't have anything pulled there. Any discussion on any of those?
Mayor Woodbury, I just wanted to let you know that Councillor Shearson is apparently on the phone, has reconnected, and I didn't know if Lindsay was aware of that.
Okay. All right. Were there any questions or comments on 12.3? Okay, I'll call the question. Is anyone opposed to the motion? And that is carried. We don't have anything closed session for correspondence. And county report. Just go back here. See what we did last time. There was reports from the Affordable Housing Task Force. There's we had the treasurer's statements. They're getting some of the tenders out for road repairs. There was quite a bit of time spent on speed limits and traffic regulations and parking things. And you know, it's something I think worthwhile for us to pay attention to, is that the transportation department does, you know, pretty much what Jim and his crew do, of looking at all the different factors and having checkoffs on where speeds are and where different things are, and it's council's prerogative to decide to change some of those if they agree. But I think the the idea of going with these sound engineering and sound principles for speeds, and that gives us more backing than we just want to change it. One of the examples was a road that there was a group that lobbied to have its speed lowered a few years ago, and then the speed was raised a few years or closer to now because it was seen that it was too slow and causing problems. So that's just my 2 cents worth on that. Community, we got a report from Savannah on the community improvement plans. And I think that was about it. Brian, did you have any? Pretty quick meeting for a change.
Oh, it went well, and as you ably have described it, again.
Okay, so if there's any questions, Brian's here to answer them, and we can go from there.
It'll likely be one of Clint's answers. No.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Okay, so I think we should move to members' privilege and Maple Fest this weekend. So it's hope we get great crowds out there like usual. And there's some of us leaving for Good Roads on Sunday for the conference, and promises to be pretty good. So any other good news and celebrations? Barbara?
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. And yes, looking forward to things opening up and events starting to happen again. I had I was able to attend the Hanley Institute in Flesherton on Saturday for their youth production about Agnes MacPhail. The performance was in response to the Hanley Institute being awarded $50,000 grant from the Government of Canada Legacy Fund of the Building Communities Through Arts and Heritage program. I had to write that one down so I didn't get it wrong. And I just wanted to send a shout out to the youth of the Hanley Institute. They did a great job, and the turnout far exceeded their expectations. They had to bring in chairs and pews from throughout the building. So congratulations to the Hanley Institute on that performance.
Okay, great. Any other good news and celebration? Okay, don't hear anybody jumping up. We can go to the confirming bylaw. We had no closed meeting, and we can go. Yep, go ahead.
I was surprised it wasn't mentioned, but the Maple Fest is this weekend. I just thought I should remind everybody, and I'll put it in the minutes as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We have a motion moved by Jim, seconded by Barb. It's a confirming bylaw. Any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called for the confirming bylaw. Councillor Frew?
Yes. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Dobry?
In favor.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, thank you. And we just have the motion moved by Brian that we adjourn at 11:24. So thank you, everybody. We had our share of delayed microphones and cameras and all kinds of stuff today, but we made it. So thanks. And we shall see everyone later, hopefully at Maple Fest.
Ciao, everybody.